Okay, bye. Have a good time.
Do you see what I see?
I see a beautiful hamburger.
I bet it's a clue.
Yeah, I bet.
We'd better memorize it.
I don't think we'll have to memorize it. The hamburger's winning.
Boy, my mouth's watering. Let's go.
Come on, boys and gals. Let's have a barbecue.
Sunday, Sunday, Sunday!
What's going on here? Oh, sir, I'm arrested. Oh, oh. Oh, arrest. Oh.
Wacky fun.
Wacky fun. Hey, everybody. Happy Sunday.
How's it going?
So rainy weather out there. I don't know what it's kind of like on and off sunny, cloudy out here in Colorado. Kind of pretty though. I like it.
I'm on vacation. It's raining here, so it's actually kind of nice.
Nice. Beating the Atlanta heat.
Oh, well, it definitely beats the Atlanta heat. So.
Nice. So I thought we'd talk about stories this lovely Sunday. I recently made a video on the Gray Jedi. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Gray Jedi. Almost nobody is.
Yeah, they're they're not quite the Sith, and they're not quite Jedi Knights. They're more of a neutral between the two, if I'm not mistaken.
They're the libertarians of the Jedi Order.
Yeah. They're the who's that guy from Parks and Rec? Ron Swanson.
The Ronson.
Yeah, that's right.
Here's the question: Is the Republicans the Jedi or the Sith?
Ooh.
And is
both.
Are the Democrat?
Yeah, both. That's a good answer.
Well, it's more about like methods, I would say. So, yeah, they're both on the dark side then.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. All right, just kind of.
As far as ideology goes, that's more subjective. I mean, because you can want good things, but go about getting them the wrong way.
Yeah, you can definitely be more of a taker, like a Sith.
Yeah.
Well, the Sith are all about passion and I would maybe not excess.
Yeah, they're
right.
They're definitely about like greed.
Yeah. I don't necessarily believe that's a conservative kind of Republican trait. I mean, are we talking conservatism or are we talking political parties here? Because if you got
yeah, it depends on how you, like I said, if I'm saying it, like if it's a method that you're after, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think critics of Republicans would say they're greedy because capitalism bad, I guess. Definitely they could appear as the more materialistic group.
Right, because it means more bodies for the one party and it means more workers for the other. And, you don't really have to point out the good parts or the bad parts too hard for having more people, but you also don't have to point out, like, it's not hard to point out the bad parts of having too many people. So
yeah. Well, something I talked about in my video is that I just think I kind of pointed out the influences that Lucas had when he wrote Star Wars, because he kind of wrote this amalgamation of Christianity and Taoism, I think. Very much a blend of Eastern and Western philosophies. And I think he definitely creates something that's very universal and can be accepted by any culture. So it's
big enough to work.
Right. It's big enough to work. I think it would work if that were kind of all he was doing. But I think because he had to incorporate the supernatural element of the Force, he had to explain that somehow. And I think his explanation kind of falls short by being too simple, because basically all aggression is bad. the good guys are never in any circumstances aggressors. And I think in Return of the Jedi, he hits a big snag with that because Luke has to. The thing that sets Luke off finally is not himself being in danger, but his sister, which I think is a selfless act.
Mm-hmm.
And his selfless act is the thing that drives him to almost becoming evil. And I just don't see how that works logically.
It's kind of like
Go
not
ahead.
exactly pragmatism. Like it's an idealistic kind of wizardry of some kind with some weird like quirky rules to it in a sense. But like I kind of see where he's going with the whole thing because it's like self-sacrifice. It's his desire to save his family. Yes, you're trying to save his sister, which is a selfless act, but he's also
Mm-hmm.
got that greater good element into it. Lucas himself isn't, as far as I can tell, he's not a conservative. I think he's more
Mm-hmm.
libertarian. So he
Yeah.
probably equated that like the greater good concept into his thing. And I think that's at the heart of what the Jedi concept is like self-sacrifice for the greater good. So you could say that it is a selfless act for him to go save his sister, but it's also um, like a difficult sacrifice to like in that sense as well.
Mm-hmm.
Alternatively, you could also say it's a military action in a sense. They're at war with the Sith, right? The Sith
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
declared war on them on their way of thinking they want to wipe them out. They're rebels, and they're trying to or Yoda's trying to suggest that it like if he goes and saves his sister, then the war effort in a sense also fails. So it's kind of like multiple themes. It's hard to really pin it down to like one particular thing because he does mix a lot of storytelling archetypes into his stuff.
Yeah, so part of that is the layering the conflict, I think, because you have the personal good where Luke is saving Leia, and like even in like Empire, he like goes and tries to save them, and that's a personal thing. And then like you have the external, which is like the war, the Republic and the rebellion, and or the Empire and the rebellion, um, and then you have the internal one where Luke has to sacrifice kind of like the purity of his self for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's a selfless thing. So yeah, I don't know. Do you guys think that's dark side worthy, or would make him evil like Vader? I just don't see how that makes
I don't
sense.
know. I think if maybe if we were more familiar with Eastern philosophy, you might be able to get some more like
Yeah, I
perspective on it
guess.
because that
well,
was a huge influence. It was like you said, Taoism and Buddhism, and part of the movie was based on the Seven Samurai, if I'm not mistaken, as
Mm-hmm.
well
Yep.
as Lucas also took some other influences from other classical literature. I think Beowulf. I'm not sure if you mentioned that, or is that Tolkien? Maybe both.
I know
Like you're
Tolkien
getting it
was a
off in
big
the background.
Shakespeare and Beowulf fan, so he's got a translation of Beowulf that he worked on with his son Christopher. So,
Yeah, I don't. I know Lucas used Greek mythology, foreign films like the Seven Samurai.
So I think in Taoism and Buddhism, attachment is not really, I guess, a virtuous trait,
Right.
even when
Yeah.
it's something like love and and all that stuff, because love and all that stuff ends. It's more that's case family is kind of more of a Western
Mm-hmm.
philosophy or more religious Western themes. So it's a weird mix of the two, I guess.
well, he
Yeah.
also wrote it in the 70s, the 60s and 70s, and it was a different time.
Yeah. Free love.
Well, I mean, even in terms of education, this is like the era where like there were starting to be more standards for like up to public and private schooling, and So there's a post-war effort too for World War II and Vietnam, and there's just this call to like really study a lot, and it was the idea of like, Luke, trust your feelings. Like, no, I even say when my kids are watching it today, it's like, yes, and you have to be very careful which feelings you listen to,
Mm-hmm.
because your feelings can be wrong.
Yep.
And today's, I think, like when you have all the logic side on it, the intuition kicking in, I mean, like, I do think bravery is more of an emotional feeling. So,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense to be like, yes, trust your feelings,
Right. Yeah, I think I mean, we've touched on this before. I think that's just how art influences the culture and reflects the values of a culture. Like, trust your feelings. I feel like that's the message we're told a lot. Like, what your heart is telling you. Like, Shmi tells Anakin, what does your heart tell you? And I saw a really funny meme that I think sums it up well. It's like Anakin's response was like, Deuteronomy, the heart is deceitful. Who could understand it?
Oh, well, I rewatched, my kids are old enough, I'll let them watch 2 and 3 because they're
Uh-huh.
getting close to the PG-13 rating, And I tweeted out after he watched the first one, I'm like, oh, no wonder Anakin turned to the dark side. He was fatherless.
Yeah, I mean,
I got
there's
some
that.
kickback on that, but I'm not saying like, statistically it's a disease on
Yeah,
society, and
yeah,
I think it's when you can make a good point about something and be funny doing it, that's real talent. So I'm
yeah.
talented, everybody.
Right. That's
Amazingly self-assured.
That's part of my charm. So
Yeah.
that's the point of the memes. That's why some can't meme.
yeah. Well, I had a discussion about this the other day with some of the moms because I had to go to a birthday party, and I was talking about how when you're funny, when you're really, really funny, you're just talking about something that's true, but you're showing people a new way of seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yep. And of course, it was with all my church friends, and that's where I dropped the line, even God didn't want to be a woman and deal with PMS, right? Right, ladies? And
That's good.
That's pretty fun.
That's pretty good.
yep. So if you end up in hell, you just have PMS 24/7.
That's the ultimate punishment.
Somebody posted a video recently about it was a really interesting video. It was about this hero who used to train every day, and it was I can't remember the title of the thing, but it was something about uh, fantasy something and poison or whatever. But this hero used to train with his sword every day, and he would like be physically fit, and he would go to town and stuff like that, and all the women would smile at him, and then one day a ghost appears and then offers but he was it was difficult for him to you know basically talk to the ladies. He was not the most charming. He was charming enough, but he too much effort to talk to real ladies. But this ghost appeared one day and offered to like show him pictures of extremely beautiful women, right? And it was a lot easier than him having to work out every single day to try to attract and work hard and train and be a hero. It was easier for him to just go to the ghost and not do any work. And it became sort of like an addiction for him.
Hmm.
And then over time, it's he spends more time with the ghost, living these fantasies that aren't realistic, and he's not spending his time studying the sword anymore, and he's not putting the work in to become like the charming hero that he could be, right? He's not talking to the real ladies. He's spending time with the ghost. He spends more time with the ghost and more images, and eventually he becomes a really sad and desperate version of himself, in complete contrast to what it was originally. So at the end of the thing, the ghosts basically tricked him in a sense, and says like, and then took over the village. And he's like, why didn't you fight me back then? He says, well, it was much easier for me to deceive you where you could used to be able to beat me, but now that you've been poisoned for so long that you can't beat me. And then at the end of the movie, it says hell is a reflection of um, uh, who you could be, your best version of yourself, right? Uh, Compared to the weakest version of yourself that you become, in a sense.
Hmm.
So that's what they, so you're
Well, for a minute,
constantly
I
shown,
thought
you're
you were going
constantly
for.
mocked by the best version of yourself as you've become the poisoned soul because of your sins.
Hmm.
Well, sin is definitely content to let you rot from the inside out. So
Yeah, it's really profound. It sounds like a pornography addiction. It sounds like a
Yeah, it's
metaphor for that.
exactly what they're alluding to, but they do it in a, you know, a cartoony way. It's probably geared towards like, teenagers and stuff because they don't specifically mention,
Yeah,
you know.
well, that's what good metaphor does. Tell a story without directly talking about the thing that you're talking about.
It was
yeah,
cleverly done. Somebody posted on Discord, so a
Nice,
Discord. So I was like, oh, that's cool. But
nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
the ending though, where they talk about the reflection though, where you're like mocked by the best version of yourself that you would be if you hadn't fallen into sin.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Morality is complex, and I think there has to be an objective truth, and part of that is admitting that there is sin, and not all worldviews do that. And
well, like I'm
sorry, go ahead.
perfectly. Oh, it's okay. I was gonna say I'm perfect. It's hard for me to like people who always say like prove to me there's a God, and it's like, you know what? I'll do you one better. I'll prove that there's a devil. you
Oh
know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's it's not hard to say this is evil. If I
Hmm.
punch you in the face and steal your
Right.
wallet, is that good or bad?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
you know, what if the laws get changed where that's not a a legal issue, or personal space or anything,
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I think a big reason why people turn away from religion is the problem of evil, and they have a hard time believing in a just God because there's evil. But the fact that there is evil says that there is a truth.
hmm
So, what's your best option from that point? I think it is God. Like, where else are you going to go? It's understandable to have issues with God, but in a relationship, you work out your issues instead of denying that the other person exists. So,
yeah. Well, I think it requires a broad perspective too a lot of times because um when I think about like some of the like recent movies that come out and stuff and how they're all about like the character, especially like with women, because I don't know, I guess women are stupid and we haven't watched enough movies from the 80s and 90s, that have good female characters in them. You know,
Jennifer
uh,
Lawrence was the first at everything.
I guess so. I just they always push the female empowerment, and it's like she don't need no man, and
Yeah,
and it's like she doesn't need physics, I guess either.
right.
So um, I was like, I don't like that, and I think like that's where you have such a limited perspective to empowerment. So I
Yeah.
mean, when I think about being a mother, like my body is like a battlefield for my
Mm,
children when I
yeah.
give birth and when I'm pregnant and
Hmm.
um, like I am sacrificing my temporary discomfort
Yeah.
for something greater in terms
Hmm.
of um, and it's just explaining that to people.
This has been known for most of history too. I was watching like the History Channel back when it was still about history,
Yeah.
and they were talking about how in Spartan society the highest honors were given to men who died in battle and women who died in childbirth,
Mm.
because those were the two deaths that were done for furthering society. And
Yeah.
ancient people knew this, and I think modern people have forgotten it.
we
And
don't fight a lot of wars on a regular basis like we used to do.
yeah, I think
I mean,
something
not
that's
on a personal level.
yeah, something that's interesting to me is like when I watched Avengers Endgame, they have all the heroes gathering against Thanos, and there's this part where you get the women from Wakanda gathering around, and I thought it's interesting that the writer's idea of a powerful woman is basically a woman who acts like a man, who dresses in armor, carries a spear around.
Yeah.
And I thought there's plenty of powerful women out there who just act like women, you know, and do womanly things. There's a lot of, like you said, battles to be fought there.
Oh well, one of my favorite commentaries on marriage is Superman had to get married at some point because he didn't want to keep doing his own laundry. So
You know, I actually do more laundry than my wife. I'm not. That's just not an exaggeration. That's actually true. She'll admit it.
oh well, that's
But I
good.
cook too. Like I'm as a firefighter. Like I gotta cook and do laundry and clean. Just,
Well, it sounds like you're an exceptional husband.
well, when I'm around, I guess I don't know. I try.
Yeah. Oh well, one of the things that I wrote in a book, um, one of my books is like men are good at fighting off evil and like destroying evil. You know, like the men go slay the dragons,
Hmm.
but the women, like you said, like they give birth and they make all the small things about life
Hmm.
better, and it's not as big, maybe, and is cleaning the kitchen
Wait.
versus
Giving life
playing.
is huge. What are you talking about?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. But I mean like
it's big. It's because the warrior wouldn't. It's like the chicken and egg, right? You can't
Yeah.
have one without the other.
Dave
well,
Chappelle. I like his stand up. He said, if a man could have sex with a woman in a cardboard box, he wouldn't buy a house. Like men are just too simple and primal to make a house a home. I mean,
yeah,
doesn't mean it can't be done. You know, I don't want to generalize too much, but we are given special talents, designed
yeah.
differently, and
Well,
women just do things in the way that men aren't designed to do.
right, right. And but we add to it in different ways. And I really get ticked off with people that are like, you know, needs manpower, and I'm like, oh, it's so overdone.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I don't know. We're probably hitting that that point where it's been overdone, so we need something else. So
yeah. I think it goes back to the moral compass thing, like getting back to Star Wars, like for example, Luke's anger, right? I think there something I talked about in my videos that there is such a thing as righteous anger,
yeah.
um, but you gotta be very careful with that because I think as humans we can only arrive at righteousness through humility, not through pride. And pride leads to downfall. Thinking you're right all the time leads to downfall. If you look at the most violent people, the most egregious people, they think they're right.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. That you see that in a lot of fiction too, though. The villain, actually has a compelling case, and they believe in their cause.
Sometimes.
It's not the
Often
case
they
with the
believe
Sith
in
so much. I think Star Wars is a little simple that way, but it's another fiction they do a good job of that.
a good villain. Actually, is a good guy that believes in his cause too much and willing
Yeah.
to do anything to enact it, to make
Oh
it
yeah.
a reality.
Oh yeah.
That's the danger, man. That's the danger of temptation, right? That's what it is,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And we talk about the fantasy versus reality. It just doesn't have to be just physical temptation. It could be temptation
Hmm.
of your ego. It could be temptation of all kinds of different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
that's like they often say that evil is indifference, like to the suffering of other people. Well, I mean, like I guess that's kind of true because in that way, like if you're the hero, the villain in this film, and you're trying to do something good, and you're doing it by stepping over other people, right? Uh, then you're not doing you're indifferent to the fact that they're suffering. So yeah, like it's evil.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I think we all kind of have enough evil naturally baked in us. And then when we think the Bible says lean not on your own understanding. And I think when we lean too much on our own understanding, that's the result.
yeah. Well, I mean, even in the book of Job, I like to think of Job with that, where God is asking Job where he was when he created the mountains and the Leviathan and the behemoth, and
Mm-hmm.
and counted out the stars, and in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I do think the epitome of pride is having just a self-centered focus on your life, where it's you want this power, you want this affluence, you want this prestige,
Mm-hmm.
you want this, I don't know, collection of bodies in your basement. I don't know.
Just went to Jeffrey Dahmer real quick.
Well, it's past dinner time.
Oh, okay. You're hungry.
Oh, well, are you talking about the Gray Jedi stuff because of the Ahsoka trailer that dropped it was a couple weeks.
That's
Weeks
just
ago?
coincidence. Yeah, just good
Okay.
timing. I do like the concept of someone who uses both sides of the force, just because obviously I reject the light and dark side dichotomy, because
Oh, well,
I think
You have to
morals stand on their own, and whether not how aggressive you are, I don't think that's what determines if some person's good or evil.
you have to accept was like the Gray Jedi thing. You kind of have to accept the fact that that sin's a part of you in order to understand it,
Mm-hmm.
to deal with it and stuff like that, because you do people fall to temptation all the time,
Mm-hmm.
in little things, right? Like sometimes you get angry, right, and then you're tempted to be a little too angry,
Mm-hmm.
and you say something to somebody and you choose violence, or you choose to uh, you know laugh at something maybe you shouldn't laugh at the misfortune of somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's a temptation there, and it's not necessarily good reinforcements of your behavior. Maybe you're tempted to lie to get out of a sticky situation where you're thinking quickly and you're tempted to be like, hey, my gun's in my car, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like 5 steps away. Just say you don't actually have a gun. Whatever the situation may be, these are small little temptations and things, and that's basically what. I kind of lost my train of thought there.
It's easy to fall into temptation.
It's easy to fall in temptation. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I mean that's kind of it. Like, people are corruptible. There's no
yeah. So, you
person
accept the Gray Jedi
Jesus.
accepts the fact that there's evil inherent in humanity in a sense, and I think that, to be honest, I think Gray Jedi are more conservative than anything else.
That's an interesting take. Yeah, I mean they are my favorite form of the Jedi, and I think unfortunately they're underplayed in the Star Wars universe.
Because the Jedi are somewhat hubristic, right, in a sense, which is in itself a bit of temptation. So when I have I have a negative thought, like I only started this in the last couple of years, but like if I had like a negative thought, I just do the Lord's Prayer, right? Just when I was thinking like a really shitty, like, oh, the whole world's gonna end, and bad things are gonna happen, or I got in a fight with this person, and I like, maybe I shouldn't have said this, or maybe I shouldn't have done this, and downward spiral for a thought. I just do the Lord's Prayer, and then it really takes me out of that like negative spiral, and then just puts me back on a regular kind of focus, right? Because it's all in there, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like resetting your brain. Yeah, I like the Gray Jedi. That's an interesting take, though. Like, if there's an understanding about their own fault baked into their philosophy.
We lost CJ.
Yeah, I think technical stuff. She could be back. I don't know. But yeah, if there's a recognition of their own fault base baked into their philosophy, I think that's really interesting.
Because like they allude to that throughout the entire saga, where the Jedi, the reason they become the fall of the Jedi Temple and stuff like that was because they became too altruistic, I guess, and too interested in their own philosophy, and and then that led to the Sith to be able to corrupt, get them into wars and stuff, where they're trying to enforce their idealism of justice on other people, right? And then they go to war and go to war to do so, where the Gray Jedi just kind of sits back and be like, the Force is over here doing its own thing, and it's got a balance that you have to maintain, right? You can't go. You have to accept that there's evil and ignore it, and like leave it where it is, and you have to accept that there's you know good and a natural order to things, and kind of like accept that as well as it is, and then try to be in key with that natural order. If you go too far to one direction, and then you're a conqueror, right? Maybe you're
Yeah,
a conqueror in the name of good, you're a crusader, but you're still killing people, you know.
that's an interesting concept. Like, did the Jedi fall because their philosophy wasn't true enough or complete enough, or was it because they got tied into like too much into nationalism? Like, I know that's not exactly what you said, but to me, that's like where that goes in my head. Because I think if their philosophy was really true and complete, and they had the capacity to carry it out the way it could ideally be carried out, then it wouldn't necessarily fall apart unless they got corrupted in some way, whether in their philosophy or their execution of the philosophy.
Well, I kind of saw it as maybe you can see it as kind of like a parallel between this and like the Great Schism in the Catholic Church and the Protestant churches,
Mm-hmm.
where you have an establishment that's grown from the church to be part of the state to the point where it becomes so interconnected that when the state falls, it falls as well. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have kind of like the echelons of power being chipped away by apostates and heretics,
Mm-hmm.
maybe to a point.
Mm-hmm. That's
So,
interesting too. Yeah. Like, so I'm thinking, yeah, like the Catholic Church, I think they were corrupted by getting tied into nationalism because they got tied into power and saw the Protestants as a threat to that. Um, Similarly, like I think the Jedi, they kind of made themselves the Navy SEALs of the Republic instead of just being kind of advisors and ambassadors. So then they ended up working for the Emperor unwittingly.
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, it is important to remember that these stories don't encompass even like a small fraction of the complexity of you know societal structures and politics and
Hmm.
religion and faith and all that. Like, because
Yeah.
you can easily be like, because I don't think Cromwell, for example, like the Lord Protector of England, for like has a place at all in the
Hmm.
Jedi universe. Like, there's no real comparison for him. But like, he saw during the time like the Puritans came out that the whole thing was completely corrupt across the board, right?
Mm.
And he removed the divine, he removed the leadership and put himself as the Lord Protector of England. And then where his like message was, uh, Christ, not man, is king, right?
Mm.
So there's really
Hmm.
I can't think of any parallel in like in Star Wars that is even close to that, right? Where like at some point there's a tipping point where um, there's too much evil and too much BS and too much corruption that you have to correct it, at least from his perspective. I'm a
Yeah.
little bit on the
Yeah.
fence of that one, of which way and how to correct it. Like, and we're seeing a very similar thing in society now, whereas the polarization of the different ideologies and stuff. You have like people that have no or don't. They're like becoming violent and harmful, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the only way to stop somebody in that thing, you talk about righteous anger
Mm-hmm.
or righteous you know stuff. Well, sometimes the answer is lethal force. Sorry
Mm-hmm.
to say, but that is the case. So not
Even the Jedi would say it. They had lightsabers.
yeah. So, but there's no real Cromwell like type figure that I could see uh, in Star Wars.
Oh
Yeah.
well, maybe when George Lucas buys the rights back, you can write that book and see if
Right.
they'll publish it on under the Neo EU, right? So
Right. That'd be interesting if he bought it back. I don't see it
I think
happening.
I think he is. I think he's vying to buy it back. There was talks about it. Randy Zimmerman was talking about it on his channel, either Sunday Funnies or Comics by Night. I'm not 100% sure which one because they did a bunch of those streams. They tend to mix together because one's like 5 a.m. and the other one's like 9 a.m. on a Sunday. And you know, if
Oh,
you're
well, I've been reading the comments, and it said, I guess somebody mentioned that Saban had a similar issue where I guess it was Disney that bought them, and then they tanked it, and then Saban bought the rights back and then sold it, like he brought it back to profitability, and then he sold it again to Hasbro, so for a lot more money.
so
Interesting.
I think what
It's not
Lucas.
like it's without precedence.
So I think what Randy was saying is that Lucas is actually either in talks right now to buy it back or gearing up to buy the franchise back entirely. If not the whole shebang, all of it.
Huh.
I don't know. They still have that the next Star Wars movie coming out, scheduled for 2026 with Master Ray. So
Master Ray.
Well,
She was
Lucas,
born Master Ray. Where's the development with Ray?
see, when they first bought Disney, I even said I know how I would do it, but I don't think they're going to do it my way.
How would you do it?
I would have the Force be born as a person, like for real.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Messiah.
It's the oldest one in the book, right?
Yeah, there you go.
I know I mean, like, the thing is like, I think one of the great things about being in the West is that, like, knowledge is power. It's like the ultimate authority on some level. Like, truth is the ultimate authority when it comes to us. Like, if you go to the Middle East, it's more about power. So, like, you have the like social hierarchy systems and stuff. So, like, one of the biggest problems with like the big Muslim apostate that's happening right now is that the West is, like, the Muslims in the West, they're starting to realize that a lot of their imams are hiding some of the hadiths and some of the suttas from them, and some of them make certain people from their books look really stupid and really awful and really corrupt, and so they have to struggle with that, where it's, are you going to listen to authority over, like, the document in front of you type stuff. And I think when Lucas talks about, like, bringing in the Eastern spirituality side more, I do think that you kind of have to have a good balance of the East and the West, in that in acknowledging that with truth comes authority, and with authority you have to wield truth responsibly, and you do it out of love, and love is both, logical and authoritative and emotional, and it's an action. So I think that's probably why I think it would work as a storyline, but I know also people wouldn't appreciate it necessarily.
Yeah.
And it'd be so easy to mess up too. You'd have to be really careful with that.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, what you described sounds more like Lord of the Rings to me, how authority can corrupt people and power can corrupt people.
Well, I mean, like, I think Tolkien had a very deep understanding of that, especially when you are on the battle lines in the front of the war. And World War One kind of was the start of the revolution for modern day warfare. We don't use a lot of the same tactics, but a lot of the kind of like the pitfalls of, like, 18th and 19th century warfare could be, could be resolved with technology and manpower, and it was just a time for rebirth, a military renaissance, as it were.
Wars today are completely different than they used to be. Like nowadays, you get like an app on your phone, and you're like, oh, the battle line's here. Okay, we're gonna take this road to the grocery store. Oh, that one's blown up. Okay, we'll take this one to the next one. Like it, and they just go about their day. Like it looks like they're bombing the north side of the city today. Okay, it's like almost like a bad. I mean, it's obviously war and it's horrifying, but it's almost reduced to like weather, like bad weather, like a tornado
Yeah.
almost.
I was thinking of San Francisco. People just poop in the streets, and there's apps that tell you where it's at.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, it's yeah, it's interesting how Tolkien understood the corruption. I feel like Lucas just points out one way is good, do the good thing, whereas Tolkien seems to be pointing outside of that, saying, "No, you're definitely corrupt, no matter what you do. So you need some other
yeah.
intervention."
I'm not 100% sure if Lucas's message was just do good and per se, because there is a lot of Eastern and Taoist and Buddhist and influences. He was a fan of samurai. He studied samurai. He
Hmm.
was aware uh, of martial arts and the stuff in and around that. And one of the things between that stuff, like one of the saying, for example, in um, Eastern philosophy is like before enlightenment, chop wood. After enlightenment, chop wood. There's a naturalistic kind of um, thing to it, like the path of least resistance is actually more virtuous than uh, certain things, right? So I'm not sure if he had a specific this is good as so much as be kind of like as least, like, use the path of least resistance as much as you can to achieve the greatest effect and stuff. And you do that with a lot of Eastern, and it's like a warrior's kind of code, because when you're fighting, for example, and studying the sword, if you're going to like attack somebody, right, or defend, and then you have to think about defending yourself, right, and then you raise your
Mhm.
sword to defend yourself, and your mind's stuck on the point where you're thinking about the sword, you're not reacting in time to defend yourself, so there's no clarity of thought. But if you've practiced and chosen the path of least resistance and practiced and practiced and practiced to the point where you can have that clarity of thought, you just lift your sword. You're not thinking about it. You're not stuck on that point. So you're slower one way and more efficient the other.
Yeah, I think what I was getting at is like Lucas has an ideal that's driven by action. It's like I think most religions compared to Christianity that there's an ideal and you get there by your own action, whether it's through inaction or not desiring something, like Buddhism, how they try to rid themselves of desires. Um, Christianity says there's someone else who's acted on your behalf. The action's done. You just have to basically follow that person. That's kind of what I was
I
getting
think
at.
I know just from because I've done some yoga classes in my
Hmm.
lifetime, so I need forgiveness and stuff. Matt Walsh is lifting. So, but I mean, there's supposed to be such a connection between what your body does with your
Hmm.
spirit inside of you, and work is, you know, I mean, even Hitler said work makes you free. So, there's something that's deeply human about working.
Hmm.
And I think even if you have enlightenment, you still have the body and you still have to take care of the body that houses the enlightenment in that. And I know with the samurai code, a lot of them wrote like haikus and poetry because like, they had to go out and destroy a lot of things. So they had to kind of try to add something beautiful as kind of like a healing action for the atrocities that they were committing.
Hmm.
It was not just enough to like sully your soul. You had to try to beautify the world around you as
Hmm.
to balance things out.
Hmm.
I think that the problem, and C.S. Lewis talks about this in Mere Christianity, the the problem with that, of course, is that when people talk about the greater good, you know, God as the greatest good, and getting as close as you can to that, um, is is the thing that's behind this idea of the push and the pull of like the yin and the yang, and the creation and destruction. I mean, you even see that in the burning bush. Like you have the bush is being burned and destroyed, but it's also still alive and growing, and then the voice of God is coming through it from behind.
Yeah, I think like yin and yang are kind of like observable different. They're observable factors in the world. It's almost like Ayn Rand's materialism or objectivism. How she only believes in what you could see, and I think the negative and positive energies are like they're observable physically, they're observable spiritually in a sense, but there is a greater principle driving those things that I think adds a deeper understanding than saying one's positive, one's negative, and balance is ideal. I think there's a even deeper principle than that. I think that comes in
Yeah.
the form of an intelligent being who's the designer.
Oh, well, I will say, like, intelligence makes sense because, like, you have to be able to, like, put everything together in a way that makes it work. And
Hmm.
you're not going to get that without intelligence.
Yeah, even Paul talks about that when he talks about the idol to the unknown God, or is it
Mhm.
the was it an idol or is it
It,
temple? I can't want to say it was an idol.
I thought it was a shrine.
A shrine. That's what I'm thinking of. To the unknown God, basically saying like, yeah, there's a higher God than Zeus. There's a highest God. He's a greatest good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, well, are you looking forward to the Ahsoka series?
I don't know. I mean, it has a lot of Star Wars. I think it has potential. I just don't have faith in the creators to do it right.
That's true. I will say I was recently reminded of this, that you don't watch you, my rule with watching new stuff is that you don't watch it until it's over, or at like a stopping point that you will be fine with, you know.
Mhm. That's kind of where I'm at too. I don't like jumping on when it's new.
Yeah. So I'll wait till it's all done and I'll listen to the reviews, and if I want to watch it, I'll check it out, but I don't think I'm going to want to watch it. So the chitter chatter around it is already kind of depressing. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, I'm gonna skip it entirely. I have no interest in it at all. It's
I
Star
heard the book
Wars,
with Ahsoka was good, but
but like it just looks more of the same
yeah.
stuff they just keep putting out there. It's like hyper feminism. It's not apparently obvious, but I'm fairly convinced it's going to be in there. So
Yeah.
I'm
That's
Yeah.
not a
kind of
big fan
their
of I'm not a big fan of collectivism as a whole. So I think
yeah.
collectivism is very selfish in many
Yep.
ways. So and
Yep.
comes across in that way. I don't know. So it could be really good. It could be a really good movie, but
Yep.
I don't think so. I don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I might be
And
No.
wrong. But
it's too much retconning because Ahsoka, she was if she was alive during the original trilogy, where is she during all these key points in the story? Where was she during the
Oh.
destruction of the Death Star?
and it's just the wrong people are in charge of it.
Yeah.
It just I don't care even who you get for the producer, whoever. It just just
Yep.
leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Right. Right.
I'll say this, like I write a lot of books and stuff, and I mean, like I invest my own, like I have my own imprint, and I invest my own money into editing and covers and all this stuff and everything. And I get that, like, it can be risky, especially if you write stuff that not everybody is going to like, or read, or I mean, like I like writing stuff that's clever, and that can be off-putting for some people.
Hmm.
Some people who know better than me about certain things. And I don't know. I don't see it saving Disney Star Wars for what it's worth. So,
I
but
don't know what can save Disney other than a 180 from what they've been doing.
It really depends because they're obviously targeting their newer fans, right?
Hmm.
They've really kicked out all the sweaty nerds out, and
Hmm.
like their target audience used to be, all across the board, sweaty nerds, working class fathers. It was a very masculine franchise. It's space battles, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was the longest time their target audience, and then they progressively went into more progressivism,
Hmm.
and it
mhm,
became, forces female, forces for everybody, whatever. Uh, sure, it was all really originally that. It just it wasn't commonplace for women historically to be interested in, you know, those particular topics. Never, not that they were barred, they were just never interested, because it just wasn't part of it's not common. But
Hmm.
mhm,
over time, you get enough people, right, that are interested in it because they grew up watching it, right?
Hmm.
yeah,
Their mother watched it and their father watched it, or their father watched it and their mother was in the other room, and then they're like watching their dad watch it, and they're a girl, and and they watch it, and they'll watch it with their kids, and so when you get enough time, it kind of overrides the natural um
Then that,
interests of the sexes, right?
yeah, yeah,
So, but they've been really pushing that progressive idealism for a while now of, the force is female. So I think it's just going to be a piece of crap, you know,
yeah. They're
just,
getting away from what made the hero's journey compelling. I mean,
yeah,
you could do
yeah,
that with a female, but I think they're afraid
yeah,
to give a female enough limitations to have to go through the journey.
yeah,
exactly. You saw that with Ray from the Force Awakens. It was very much a Mary Sue type character, perfect at
Yeah,
everything. And it didn't earn anything.
yeah,
nope. It's just all handed to you because it's her turn.
Yeah.
yeah,
So,
If they shy away from that, it might be good, right? It
yeah.
could be good, but I doubt it. We'll have to wait and see. It's one of those things.
Hmm.
yeah.
But I'm not holding my breath. Speaking about things that don't leave a bad taste in your mouth, can we know, CJ, can we hear more about your project and what you're working on? Is that
Oh,
okay?
okay. Yeah.
I was kind of
Um,
curious.
well, I got my fat girl avatar on tonight. I have a friend who's drawing some comics for me from it. Isn't my That's finished, but now I'm working on my other superhero story, which is Discord, and he's my musical superhero, and I'm working on putting it up on Fund My Comic. So
That's
let's give
cool.
Luke my best later, RJ. So,
Yeah, well, that'll be awesome.
yeah,
Do you have a history with music?
I love it. I'm not very good at playing the piano, but I've been trying to learn as my kids are learning, and I can I can play with one hand, so we're there. So, but I love music as this, like it's just marked so many good moments of my life in some way or another, and I thought it'd be really cool for it to be like a superpower that you could like hear the song inside everybody's soul and see how they're feeling and what they're remembering and you know maybe a little bit of time travel.
Yeah,
So
that's cool. I can't wait to see it.
I'll say, yeah, thank you. One of my most probably poignant memories that I had about music and stuff is after 9/11 happened. We all went to my church to pray, and they sang the chorus, "Bind Us Together." And I think about that often when there is a lot of discord and political divide today.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it'd be nice to go back into that moment and be like, hey, you need to pray extra hard here.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, we were a lot more united after 9/11.
Well, I think it became pretty clear, like, and I've studied some of the stuff that goes along with it, psychology wise and stuff. Like,
Hmm.
you wonder if it's your fault, you have survivor's guilt. I grew up close to where the Shanksville plane went down, so
Mm.
it hit a little close to home, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And so, and I think of stuff like that, and it's like, how important is that? And and I think I mentioned before, like in the beginning in the Bible, it's talking about God said, "Let there be light," and the word "said" there is more like sayings when it's in the Hebrew, and they even kind of like when they speak in Hebrew, they almost chant it. It has a very particular rhythm to it.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, so my stuff is deep and it's good, and the first issue is done. I'm actually trying to get a couple of my friends to write up some, like, so it's about this guy who goes after human traffickers, which
Hmm.
is bad. We should all agree that if you're selling somebody for body parts or things that are illegal or something and enslaving them, yes, that's bad.
Yeah.
Should
That's
not
not a
be a
good thing for
controversial
sure.
statement. Yes. And so I'm trying to get a little sheet written up about like things that maybe you can look for, hotline help, or some
Oh,
tips.
I like
Just
that.
if you're, yeah. And it's also set in Atlanta. I live in Atlanta. And so I'm trying to get a little blurb for some of my favorite places in Atlanta, reasons why I've incorporated some of them into the book and the story.
That's
So
cool.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I'm I think one of the biggest problems about Star Wars and about Marvel and about a lot of the franchises is that they're not really grounded anymore, you know?
Hmm.
Like you're talking about going off and chopping wood. It's time for a lot of these heroes to come back and start chopping wood.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
So,
a good point. They're not very grounded.
if
It's
you're
very hard to
worried
relate
about
to the characters
yeah, if you're
nowadays.
willing yeah, I mean like even the whole Kang thing, it's like if you're worried about killing one variant of Kang and like I'm trying to raise my children. It's like I don't. This doesn't matter. It's like that app thing on the phone you were talking about. Oh, this is a variant of Kang at the supermarket. Okay, well I'm just gonna go tomorrow.
Right, right.
We
Yeah.
Things
actually
go and
talked a
avoid
little,
it.
little bit about this during the pre-show, about the different types of people and like archetypes you find. Where like I think the movies are more geared towards socialites than they are to your average, average
Hmm.
person. Um,
Yeah, we've got a
so
whole
the
different set of priorities.
completely, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why you're getting this huge disconnect or dissonance between the fans now, because the fans used to be, your working type class type of
Hmm.
person, and movie stars are movie stars, but it was like a complete world away. But now the target audience seems to be movie stars themselves.
Hmm.
Right. Well, they want. I think on some level, movies have diminished in their importance, and they want to believe that movies can change the world still. And for what it's worth, I agree with that. A book can change your life. And that's, I mean, you want it to be a good book.
Yeah.
So you want your work to be important and you want people to care, and you do get angry at them for not caring sometimes. So,
Yeah. It would benefit them to get on board with what the fans care about than
yeah.
more than getting angry would. Hopefully they'll
Yeah,
learn
well,
before it's too late.
I do think it's a process. It is a process. I remember when I first wrote my first book, and like you get all excited and it launches, and then people are like, "Yeah, this is it. There's difference." Yeah. It's like, "Oh, you're writing a book. Oh, how cute!" And
Yeah.
oh, you want to keep writing it? Okay, well, good luck with that. I hope you do it. It's so patronizing.
Yeah. Right.
So, and then, like you talk about grounded things. Like my family was like, you go to college and you be a doctor, right? And oh, I'm
Hmm.
gonna be a novelist. Oh, so
Yeah.
it's it's. I mean, it's kind of funny because like just I understand why people feel this way, and I'm telling you, you're too self-centered at this point, where it's not all about you. There's other things to do, and you're just not useful to these people who are looking for what 2 hours of escapism.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Yeah, it's art can be meaningful, but it also has to connect with the audience.
yeah, I mean like yeah, like my pages for my comic about human trafficking and Atlanta, they're just there if you want them to, if you want to read it. You don't have to read that part of the book. So
Mm.
so
That's a great idea, though. I like the idea of it.
yeah, but I mean, like if I was some kind of movie star and I was all self-important, be like, I thought of this brilliant thing, and it's going
Yeah.
to stop human trafficking entirely if you buy
Right.
it.
Right. Yeah.
It's like, no, you can't get that self-important over it. So
Right.
you guys will have to talk me down off a cliff when it's done, though. So
Yeah. Come back down to earth, CJ. Come on now.
yeah,
And is this is your first book that your first book entirely, or
this is my first comic book. I've never done a comic book before this one, so
and you've done
it's
a couple
very.
novels at least?
I've got a lot of novels out actually.
Okay.
They're mostly well received. So I one of my favorite reviews is about my genocidal mermaid book. People were like, I was not expecting that this would go where it went, and while the author did a good job, I hate it.
That's fine. It sounds like that comic book that well, Luke didn't create. Who was it? Pixel, Pixel Trader, and
Mermaid.
yeah, the Mermaid. Yeah, Little Mermaid.
Oh,
AL13 Mermaid.
Yeah, Piper,
oh,
Luke's editor. She's Luke's editor,
oh,
right? I think we mentioned her.
Yeah, she is.
I
Yeah.
saw that. Was there like some kind of virtue signaling game that was on Fun My
Oh
Comic?
yeah, that looks like a lot of fun. I want to back that and play that at a party. That sounds like a fun game to play.
Yeah. I saw that one, and I saw. I think I want to say, was it the Tropicals one? Um, I backed a Kickstarter for it, and it didn't
Okay.
fund itself, so I was looking for that one on Fund My Comic too.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one. There's a lot of good stuff to back though. I'm
Yeah,
excited with
Yeah.
all the
there's
tracks
too
you've been
much,
getting.
too much to back.
Yeah. If I
It's
had all the money in
piling
the
up.
world, I'd back everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, speaking about comics, is it okay if I you guys want to see what I'm working on? Is that
Yeah.
all right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
it.
Your
Okay,
turn.
let me get my stuff. So I'm kind of working on two projects simultaneously. One's a tabletop war game called Banner, Steed, and Lance. It's about a love letter to the medieval ages, and it's like a traditional tabletop war game with a couple different elements to it, like modules that you can play in different sessions. Either you can play them individually or as a whole. And the two major modules to it are a jousting game and the fanfare in and around the jousting game, and the second module that's kind of like the meat and potatoes of it is like a full-fledged war game. So you can play the four different modules of the game independently or make them all. And I'm also working on a comic book which is called Driftwood, which is tied 300 years into the future of that universe that the Banner, Steed, and Lance is. So one's really grounded, the other one's completely off the wall, like high fantasy.
Pretty cool.
And Driftwood's more about Banner, Steed, and Lance explores Western foundational values and like Western themes and war and like the age of Vikings through to the 1400s, 1500s, maybe a touch of the 1600s. Where in a sort of alternate universe, whereas Driftwood explores the darker sides of humanity when society has fallen apart in certain areas and there's corruption and zombies and necromancers and all that kind of stuff. Now, a central theme of the book, of both things, is undead. There's undead in both of these things. There's just more of it in Driftwood. So Driftwood it follows the story of a young necromancer as he's trying to escape these lich lords. A lich, if you're not familiar with it, is like an evil wizard, and they're trying to track him down for various reasons that you have to find out in the book. And while he's doing that, he comes across some people that say that he's essentially the chosen one, but he's the worst human that you can possibly imagine. So he's like he's, I don't know, he's like the Lucifer of his thing. So it plays with the idea of what do you do when the person that has to save you is the worst possible candidate to do so. So
Also, it's a political allegory.
well, I guess so. I mean, I'm not approaching I'm not approaching it with politics at all in mind. More of like playing on themes of archetypal stories, I guess, right? So instead of a hero, you have I don't know, sort of like an anti-hero, but to the ninth degree. Anyways, here's some of the I'm gonna pull up the
Okay.
thing here, so I'll just take a second. Let me
I would like to see the pictures.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Let me change the screen here. Oh, that's not what I want.
I started reading A Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's Court with my kids this week. So the medieval stuff is pretty interesting.
I saw the movie.
Well, there was a movie in the 90s called A Kid in King Arthur's Court.
Oh, sorry, I thought that's what you said.
Oh, it's based off of Mark Twain's book, A Connecticut Yankee in King
Oh.
Arthur's Court. So I was going to say that's the one that they know of. And I was like, I'll read the book that goes along with it. So
Okay, so you read the Mark Twain book.
well, we started it. We're only like a couple chapters in.
That's cool.
Okay, camera's set up. Nope. Hang on. There we go. Yeah, so
Oh, that's neat.
blow me up there, I guess.
Is this your 3D modeling?
Oops, that's not.
Yeah.
Cool. I like the coloring. Purple's such a good color for zombies. It'll really set off like the rotting flesh look.
Mm-hmm. So this is one of the Lich Lords that are like this character in particular is the antagonist of the main character. So he's trying to hunt him down the majority of the story, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really integral to make sure that the looks of like this is reference art that I'm going to be giving to the artist, so they have like a place to go with. So this is, he doesn't have a name yet. I'm still kind of writing that down, but basically what the Lich Lords and their society is going to be looking like this. So they're like an empire in a sense, and that like any empire, they have needs. And these particular dudes have a need for well, we just talked about human trafficking, so they're human traffickers. They need
like
basically blood. Well, not blood, but no, they're not vampires per se. They just, in order to keep doing their magic and study necromancy, they need to have like fresh humans, right? So they trade their magical know-how and these things here, which is plays into the story, like the shards, what I'm calling them, and it gets a little more complicated into the story about them. But they make magical artifacts, and they have magic and resources that they can trade, and they trade with neighboring empires that they're sympathetic to them, or they're whatever they're doing for greed. And the main hero, or the hero in the book, he's not really a hero, but the hero in the book is one of them, and he's aspiring necromancer. He grew up in the society, so that's all he knows. So, and then the events in the book happen, and then he is sort of expelled from that society, and they're trying to hunt him down and kill him. And this is the character that job is. So follows the main character. So it's a really
Yeah, it looks really nice.
I like that. It's a cool story.
So I'm excited about. It's my first comic book. I've always liked zombies. I've always liked sort of horror stories, and I've always been fascinated with that's not my work there, but like undead and things like that. A lot of my favorite comics feature zombies in them and stuff. So I'm excited to give my my take on this over. As I say, kicking a dead horse, but I'm hoping I can kick it just a little bit better than the guy that previously kicked it.
That's pretty cool, though. I like the
Well, I
concept
mean, if
of
you're
it.
kicking a dead horse and you're working with necromancers, I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, right.
So this is just one of the reference pieces I've been working on for the week, trying to get the look of the robes for the characters, because they're both going to be wearing a similar style outfit through the majority of the comic, right? So it's important for me to get the reference art to the artist, so I feel like I could easily just give a script over and be like, do this, and this, but I'm an artist myself, and I said I make miniatures and I have a tabletop game in the works. I've always wanted to do comics, and I even started into 3D because I wanted to work originally before Marvel, before they kind of went stupid. And it required at the time, they actually had to have some kind of 3D skill. So I started out doing 3D to become a better overall artist, and I stuck with it and kind of became my thing. And now I'm starting to get back into 2D art. But for the first book, though, I'm doing just the reference art. So at least I can feel like I can contribute visually to the project still, which I'm kind of excited about.
It's awesome.
I think it looks really cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Can't wait to see the comic book.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun.
Nice. Cool.
Yeah.
I got one that's still a script. I don't draw or anything, so I don't have any pictures of showing one. So I'm just kind of sending that around right now, putting together a creative team at the moment. So I'm in no rush. It should be good when it finally comes out.
Can we get a anything? What's it about?
So it takes place 1,000 years in the future. We've made contact with the aliens and gotten a lot of their technology. Earth is run by a global government, and it's kind of expanded into other planets that we've terraformed. Human beings lived on a lot of other planets. There's a AI war where humans team up against the AI, humans and aliens, basically any biological being versus artificial intelligence, and then kind of splinters off from there. There's sort of a stalemate, and then the independent planets that want to be independent from Earth's government end up in a civil war, and then it takes place following that. And the character that the comic book follows is Orion, who's basically a Navy SEAL he's like the special forces for Earth's government. And it's sort of like in the spirit of Starship Troopers, how it's like fake propaganda that's lampooning the thing that it's supposed to be propaganda for. So that's kind of the basic concept behind it. But there's a lot more to it. I'm more excited for it to come to fruition and talk more in detail about when there's something actually in production. But I think people are going to love it. I'm very biased, though.
Well, everybody's biased about their own work. Like, you never know. It could be a fantastic, wonderful thing, and you make $1 billion, or it could be like you make $1 billion on your 20th project, or you could just never make money at all, or never succeed, or
yeah,
it's always a gamble.
Yeah.
At least you get to have fun along the way. People got to remember that's fun.
I tell people you can't take it with you. So,
Right.
this is
I
what you're
think
going to
you.
leave behind. Make sure it's good.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. Well, I think we're running short on time. We kind of went over a little bit, but
That's okay. I like hearing about your projects. So.
yeah, it's always fun to talk about.
Well, I
So
mean, like, what's the point of just sitting around and judging other people and their
right, yeah,
non-creative or creatively bankrupt efforts if we don't have something better to show for it?
yeah. That's kind of what I love about the Iron Age thing. We don't just talk about other people's stuff. It's not just slinging mud. We're actually trying to build something. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, it's lovely chatting with you guys. I have another podcast I gotta hop on to.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
gonna go
you
ahead and
guys are
head out.
busy. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we all got places to be.
Oh
So.
well, Sunday night, there's just so many. Like, I have on my Twitter circle of friends, I have so many friends that are like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do a podcast this night and this night and this night."
Yeah.
Okay. So I like being a guest for what it's worth, but I don't think I'll ever start
Yeah.
a weekly one for sure.
Yeah.
I do a book podcast monthly, and I think that's a lot of work. I juggle a lot of stuff though, so
Yeah.
with kids you juggle a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
you have to make sure the stuff that can be broken doesn't get broke.
Yeah, that's very true. It's very true. All right,
All right, well, you
everybody.
guys have a good night, everyone.
All right. Play the outro.
Fair.
Even the appetizing process of broiling the hamburgers is fun and promotes friendship and good fellowship.